recording. So welcome to the last session of day, is it 3 now? Oh my God, it's hard to keep track after so many wonderful sessions. I wonder how many of those you've attended or still planning to attend, because the recordings will be up for 4 days after the event. And then afterwards, if you want lifelong access, you can purchase them, just for you to know. And there's a whole day coming up. So this will close off the 4th day it is, and then we are moving into the 5th day tomorrow for most of you. For me, it's already the next day. So wherever in the world you are, if you want to add that location to your name, we always love seeing as well where in the world everybody is located, because it gives that sense of like, oh yeah, you're in my hometown, or you're in the same country as me. And we are literally a global community and a group of people from all over. So that would be my recommendation. Also, if you want to invite any of your friends to join this or to simply access the recordings, you can do so still. As I said, it's going to be another full day, and then afterwards 4 days to simply watch the recordings. I'll put the chat in the link, the link in the chat, link in the chat, so that you have it to share. And with that, I'm really happy to introduce a wonderful teacher. We were just talking about her having been to Berlin very recently, and I just about missed her. But a few years ago, I was lucky enough to meet Martha in person and join one of her workshops. It was multiple days, and wow, there was just so much. I wish I would have taken better notes, to be honest. But I'm really excited that now you've been sharing a few sessions already over the years for Embodiment Unlimited and been with us for a while. And I always feel that wisdom coming through you, and that wealth of tools, of movement experience, of that embodied really sense of mastery of the arts of embodiment. And in the introduction, it says as well, you're an international advocate of somatic movement education and therapy, and a speaker on health, wellness, and the body-mind connection. You also founded and are the director of Dynamic Embodiment Somatic Movement Therapy Training Program. And I know there's another program coming up soon that's starting on Friday that you'll mention. And you've written 2 or even more books on the subject matter. There's one about mindful movement, the evolution of the somatic arts and conscious action, and a newer one titled Dynamic Embodiment of the Sun Salutation. So I know you're really going into combining a lot of different, very subtle, but also very easily accessible ways to drop into the subject matter. So I'm excited to watch your session now as well and join you. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's such a pleasure. We were together, before COVID, maybe, during Brighton. So there's a different kind of BC happening now. And it's so great to see Fiona, who was also there, and Benny, who I danced with this morning. So, and Aiko, who I know, and then many of you I've never met before, and other friends. So thank you. The Embodiment Festival has opened the world to embodiment. And I have to say, I'm really proud that when I first started a movement therapy training program, I called it the Somatic Movement Therapy Training, because I was trying to get the word somatic in 1990 on the map. And then in about 2000 and something, people started saying they were doing somatic movement therapy trainings. And I was getting a little upset. It's like, wait a minute, that's my name. But then I went, that's what I wanted. I wanted people to understand that it was a field. And that's why I ended up writing a book about the field. That's the mindful movement, that it talks about Alexander technique all the way through to zero balancing, A to Z of fantastic somatics. Today, I'm going to focus on my own work, which I don't get to do as often, but I love the option here at Embodiment Conference to just do whatever feels most up and useful for me or of interest. And I love the book Jitterbug Perfume. It's a novel and it's a journey, but it's also about pleasure, and it's also about consciousness, and literally the idea of growing floral consciousness. I don't know if you've ever heard of the triune brain, but the triune brain is like kind of amphibian brain, and then more mammalian brain, and then coming into, what our cortical creative selves. And some of the movement that I'll be sharing today that I hope you'll join me in doing, whether you're seated, standing, or lying down, or in your imagination, is very potent too. There's a lot of research on how important that is. So we're going to be working with what Mark Walsh of the Embodiment Festival calls the Western consciousness practices. So conscious movement is the idea here. And why? Well, the soma is a Greek word for the living body, how the body heals. So as we get somatic, we're bringing our awareness to what we're doing so that our body can automatically kind of recalibrate and adjust. Now, there are times, and especially if there's been severe trauma that hasn't been an incident that's still retained in the body, that hasn't been unpacked and resolved, where our body signals are confused. And that's often when you want some assistance, some other person coming into your life, giving you some dialogue and some perspective. And that's where a somatic psychologist or a somatic movement therapist might come in handy. So that's what I got into. I got into taking this deep knowledge from two of my teachers, Irmgard Bartenieff, who I say is from the first generation of a Western consciousness practice, who, like many of the progenitors, developers of somatic systems, Alexander Feldenkrais, Emily Conrad's continuum, and on and on. There are now like 40 different systems, had figured out a way to heal themselves. Irmgard became a physical therapist in order to make money after escaping Nazi Germany and coming to the United States. I was lucky to work with about 30 years later, actually 40 years later. She was there in 36, and by 76, I was studying with her to understand how she put together dance, physical therapy, cultural anthropology, and then also helped to form the field of dance movement psychotherapy, working with psychiatric patients. So that's one teacher. And I'm going to just show you a little screen poster that sometimes we do as a screenshot. So I studied Laban movement analysis with Irmgard Bartenieff. And then her student was Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen of Body Mind Centering. And I created dynamic embodiment, a form of somatic movement therapy, using these. Now, when I look at this, it looks backwards. I hope you can see it. If I need to change the lettering, let me know. But on the tree, we have body, mind, dancing, and moving for life. Those are two movement systems that are a little different than movement therapy, but are therapeutic movement. Moving for Life is free. So I just wanted you to know that right away, movingforlife.org. And Body, Mind, Dancing is a dance class for expression and healing as well. It involves more level change, sometimes staying on the floor the whole time. Last night we taught it and everybody just wanted to relax. So it was an hour and a half of just exploring the body from inside, with me giving cues and ideas about what might be healing, invigorating, releasing, based on what the group wanted. A big strategy that comes in from both the physical therapist, Irmgard Bartenieff, and the occupational therapist, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, is that how we learn to move as children affects our brain, our perception, and our motor capacity. So cognitive, emotional, and perhaps even spiritual development is rooted in our in utero experience, our birth experience, and our early years of life, learning to roll, lift our heads, sit, stand, and walk. Primal markers, sometimes called the four dignities in Buddhist tradition, places of meditation and contemplation. So again, coming back to the book Jitterbug Perfume, where he's talking about floral consciousness, loved this one line he had there, which was, "It's never too late for a happy childhood." And that's the kind of work that we do with neurodevelopmental movement. So I have a standing version of doing baby movement. I can show you the baby movement a little bit, and just share with you that that's what Christina mentioned, that we'll be doing an online class on neuromotor development with these somatic embodied approaches to learning neuroscience, how the glands come in, how the organs come in, with 5 Fridays, assuming you're in the same international time zone, beginning tomorrow, actually. I mean, this Friday, this week. If you missed the first class, there's a video. So if you find yourself interested, just know that's happening. So I'm going to demonstrate what's called neurocellular development. And one of the reasons we say neurocellular is that the first movements we do are before we even have a body. We're just a zygote. It's cellular consciousness. We make decisions from our cells saying no and yes, absorb and release, basic digestion. Who. And that is what we build upon until we have this higher consciousness that sometimes screws us up. Sometimes we need to get back to that cellular knowing, that deeper place of being embraced and being loved and being full of breath. I think you've all heard about breathing being important. Most people know that now. So we're going to work with that to start. So I think so I'll show very quickly this little baby movement, and then just know that you don't need to do that. You can do it standing or sitting with me if you want to move, but you can imagine it. Or if you do want to move like a baby wriggling, I'm wriggling, feel free to. Let me just share one other concept, and that concept is of differentiation. It's a Feldenkrais word. Another word for it is coordination. So we start out kind of like a blob, right? And our whole body is kind of sucking and swallowing, and babies just emanate from their bellies. They're just so cute and round, right? And so then learning to control the head, isn't that the first place you hold when they don't have head control? Is a very important skill. Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, both Irmgard Bartenieff and Bonnie Cohen understood this neuromotor process of the head gaining control first, and then the spine. And then 2 arms are stronger than 1. So when we practice these patterns, we're reintegrating strength, flexibility, different mind states. Spinal tends to be more kind of curious. You can add more descriptors as you do it. Homologous, both arms together, same knowledge. Upper movement is more limited, but it's strengthening. When we do push-ups, we tend to do them with 2 arms first before we do them with 1. And guess what? That helps focus. It helps us when some of us are old enough to know that in school, they asked us to cross our hands and sit at the table ready for learning. It actually made sense. Bring your body together, find your spine, bring your focus on the teacher. Nowadays, teachers are kind of more willing to let the kids slump, but they'll say 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Same idea. Bring the attention together. 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a nose and mouth directing the way. So these are parts of a happy childhood. Is if you have, and you may notice that I really love to do eye classes, and I do those twice a month on Thursdays, because I love to strengthen that ability to see far and near, to have more 3-dimensional perspective, to rest from screen time, to keep my eyes as healthy as my teeth, right? We all brush our teeth. What do you do to care for your eyes? What do you know about your eyes' development? What do you know about light perception? What do you know about this more symmetrical upper organization? What do you know about right and left rotation and eye-hand coordination, or crossing the midline? So that's all of what's going on with developing the brain through these patterns. I'll say them once more. Breath, whole body belly, belly to whole body. And then isolating the spine. And then finding the use of your two limbs together. I'm going to jump down now and use my two legs to jump back. So I just jumped. You don't have to jump, but that's two legs together. And then one side and then the other side. From the arm, from the leg. It'll make more sense when we're sitting down, when I'm on the ground like a baby. And then crossing the midline. Some of you may have heard of brain dance or brain gym. These are classic activities, just slapping the opposite knee, waking up the corpus callosum. Now, our body can feel one side, the other side, or when you cross over, maybe the opposite side. So just know that proprioception is also your awareness of your own body is developed through movement. So again, I'll be demonstrating for a moment right now on the ground, and there's no real zoom in, but I'll tilt it a little bit. So the whole body, breath, just kind of making sound, feeling my belly, breathing, stretching. I could go on for 5 minutes, just that sense that I'm breathing, opening, sounding. We use the ooh and ah and ee sounds. Then there's a whole embryological journey we're not going to go into, but we really have a fetus. We come into the 3rd trimester, and we have to curl up. But in the 2nd trimester, we get to swim around from embryo to fetus. And then coming on to the knees and on our heads. We push back from the head. We push forward from the tail. This is the work of body image one. Saying most adults have lost their push power. Babies pushing back, babies pushing to get their feet on the ground. And then pushing, you may have seen the baby go in a circle, pushing with one arm, pushing the other, pushing backwards to each other until their spine curls. And you can push forward. Now, actually, when we're born, we push and we also reach. This is the birth spiral. Kind of fun. And now we show reach patterns. So if I'm on my hands and knees, I can reach with my head. I can reach with my tail. I can use it to come to sitting. I can reach with 2 arms. I can reach with 2 legs. I can reach with 1 arm and come to crawling. And I can reach with 1 leg and come to sitting and be there. So, because I want to be closer to you, I'm going to do the standing version. This is a big room, but if you're sitting, just interpret it any way you want. We're going to start with nice 3-dimensional breathing. Belly breathing is great, but so many people have lower back pain. In America, in the US, they say the biggest reason people don't come to work is back pain. So breathing into your back is very important. The diaphragm is in the front, the sides, and the back. Sometimes if you can't get the breath going back, you can just lean over your chair and stop the breathing in front and breathe in the back. And then press into your feet and come up. So we're starting with some breath. You can touch your belly if it feels good. Touch your lower back, whichever resides. Breathe in and slow down your exhale. and again. It's never too late for a happy childhood. If there's any just challenge in the breath, there's help. There's so many strategies and ways of being in the world that can support your breathing. So just yawning can be a great way to get your breath going. Or turning your head and yawning and turning your head. Breath. Now notice I'm beginning to also grow and shrink like a cell, taking in food, enjoying the boundaries, brings things in, letting stuff out from the navel. Just imagine now, again, in an American reference, there was a very kind of lovable advertisement for baking cookies, Pillsbury dough, and they would poke his belly and he would go, so you could just poke your belly and just see if there's a response, a gentle poke, a laughter, a little tickle. If that doesn't sound good to you, don't do it. Only do what's pleasurable. And then breathing in to stretch. Breathing out to soften. Whole body from center to periphery, core distal. We call it navel radiation, radiating inward and radiating outward. And if for some reason you want to do that to the back, that's great. Feel the nice spongy squeezing, releasing of your heart and the squeezing of the muscles. And then extend. So you're just having fun. So that's navel radiation. Now we're going to just drop our arms and say, oh, what does my head want to do? And how is my neck feeling today? And can I feel my spine between my shoulders? And can it send a message down through my guts, through my lower back, down to my tail, so my tail can wag and I can be happy that way. So there's tail movement. With the children that I work with, often in the school system, there's story time with kids sitting cross-legged, and a lot of kids don't have flexibility enough to sit up straight. They didn't have an experience of crawling and then sitting and having this plank. They probably would put in some kind of chair or rocker before they had their tonus balanced in the front and back from these developmental movements. Another cause of back pain, another cause of kind of not feeling, one might say, one's full dignity, one's full elongation. And with, so play with your spine a little bit. See if you can find breath out to the sides. Maybe your hips want to go first. Twisting. And just notice what mind state it puts you. What's the mood of moving more from your spine? I'm going to diminish my arms and really feel pushing up from my tail, pushing down through my chest, through my lumbar spine, my lower back to my tail. Head to tail to head, or reaching with my head, looking around, being curious, or reaching with my tail, bending the knees, and getting length from spine. And once we have that, I call this relax to focus, by the way, and it's free on Vimeo. You can just Google me and Vimeo and relax to focus. So here we are. Now, I'm going to arms down, and I'm going to take this sweater off just so you can really see my arms. So we're going down and then pressing. That's a push to lift the head. That's the first thing a baby does. It lifts its head a little bit with the spine and then adding the arms. You could be at your desk. You could be on the back of a chair, but find that you don't have to always hold your spine up. You can use the support of your heart, your lungs, and your limbs. And then similarly, if I'm bent, I can push up with my legs. We've done that a few times when we're resting our adrenal glands. And then I said, press down into the earth and up into your center. And we play with how that stimulates the diaphragm and the pancreas and helps our whole neuroendocrine system and helps me focus. Now I can also reach with two hands and reach back with two legs, a little trickier, or if you're up on your toes, you can just reach your heels down. So let's do that. Let's push with the arms, push with the legs, reach up with the arms, reach down, drop your shoulders and relax. Again, resting. Just what mood does this put you in? And enjoy it. Now remember that spinning around that the baby did? This is simulating just, I'm pushing with my arm and I go down. I'm pushing with my arm and I go down. And it's getting our C curve going and waking up the low brain, the cerebellum. The earlier patterns when we're brainstem and midbrain. Now we want to get our balance going. So other structures. And then what about the opposite? From the foot to the hand. Press up and your arm might extend from there. It's like climbing, rock climbing, lizard, or walking like a toddler, pushing from the feet. Or you can play with this one that I use in the schools a lot. Just teeter-totter. Balance. What kind of mood does this put you? We call this the binary place. Is it this answer or this answer? Yes or no? Right or left? Teeter-totter. It's good to be able to think things through, evaluate whether they make sense for you. And then once you make a choice, coming back to midline, but then also having more options by going across the body. And with the kids, we just do a countdown. Let's do 4, 1, 2, and then we're going to count backwards from 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. And what do? Blast off. And that's really kind of fun that they are now ready to hear that story that they were squirming around in their seats about for a while. So we're at almost the end of our half hour. I am going to take questions, and I'm just going to stand here for a second and think about, did I say everything I wanted to say? Something about a happy childhood. So we could have back pain, that's been clear. We could have breathing issues. We could feel inflexible and very over-focused. We could feel like we need to find focus. Said that already. We could need to deliberate more. We could need to have more choices and reach out of this push pattern. This, I'm feeling strong and taking a stance. Many of us need more of that. But then at some point, you want to reach and pull yourself to someplace new. That's what a crawl is. There's a moment in a crawl where you fly and fall. And I'll do that standing. When you reach and then fall, reach, that's brachiation. That's what we did in the trees during our evolution, reaching across, and it strengthens all of this part of the body. So this work is strengthening for the muscles, for the brain, for our attitudes, our possibilities, our different moods. So go back to that. How did the breathing make you feel? How did the growing and shrinking, the shrinking and growing feel for you? How did the spinal movement feel? Maybe moving your head felt different than moving from your tail, or the connection between. How did being focused and using 2 arms together or 2 legs together feel? How did really giving each side of your body a different opportunity to speak feel? Some people get into mother father with this? Who lives in those halves? And what did it feel like? And I'm going to do it one more time, to have 4 choices: to go backwards, to go forward, to go across, to twist. You know, as a dancer, it gets really fun. But in any case, having choices to go in different directions is awakening all the interneurons of the brain. So I hope that that's the beginning of a happy childhood. Obviously, there are some stuck points that have to do with attachment, parenting, cultural stressors, cultural pleasures that are part of what contributes. And in somatic movement therapy, we are doing psychophysical work. It's not psychotherapy, but it's coaching and therapeutic hands-on as well as movement work and guided verbal work to just find your resources and feel strong in yourself. So I'll pause there. I'd love to know questions.
Thank you so much, Martha. I feel there's so much there once again. And I think you went through it rather quickly to give us a good taste and overview and like taste every little bit of it. So yeah, if you want to take the time to write in the chat anything you observed with any of these particular movements, directions, but also any questions, if you could put a little cue before it, it helps me find them and read them out to Martha potentially. Now is the time. And while you're writing, I'm just going to remind you that, yeah, invite somebody for this festival if you feel like this is useful. And also, if you want to watch the recordings, they'll be available between the 19th and 21st. I popped the link in the chat. And should you be curious to train further, I also put Martha's website link and the link to her workshop in the chat earlier. I can repeat that. And check out, amongst other things, the stuff Embodiment Unlimited offers. It's a similar cultivation of body awareness from a slightly different angle, but that might interest you if this resonated. And just have a look. And then I'm going to check your questions. See.
And as she's looking, I'll just say that if there are different contexts that you're curious about how this might get applied, whether it's in an organization or with a child with autism, my life work, I like to laugh, was so brand new. Nobody knew what I was doing. So because of that, I've had a lot of experience in very diverse contexts and developed programming for breast cancer survivors, that's the Moving for Life, as well as for dancers, as well as for businesses. So looking forward to hearing your questions. Yeah, ready.
So maybe as a feedback first, some of the comments say that Mia was saying it all felt good. My spine feels like there's more flow from top to bottom post-movement. And also somebody asking like, wow, I wish I had a transcript of everything you just said. And I felt a little bit similar, like so dense. And then a question. I've heard that early cross-crawling is related to good rhythm. Is this true?
Love that. Generally, each of these movements relate to some aspect of rhythm. And the Dalcroze method is something that I love that has existed for a long time. And it works with like bouncing and catching balls to different rhythms to be able to play music with good rhythmic analysis and awareness. The idea that we could work with polyrhythms, I mean, the brilliance of African dance and having polyrhythmic thinking, you can imagine really how much intelligence is there. So for sure, the more complex your movement is, the more complex your rhythmic ability is. Now, we also source rhythm from the fluids of the body. When I say we, again, this is body-mind centering based. And yet the Laban movement analysis also talks about dynamics of movement. So in my dynamic embodiment, which is the dynamics of Laban movement analysis and being able to speak about movement clearly, and the embodiment practices of body-mind centering from this genius woman, Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, who knows how to source wisdom from her body and teaches us about accessing these different parts of our brain or the ligaments of one finger. So there's rhythm in everything. So exploring your body will open up rhythms for sure.
Thank you. I hope this helps, David. Then there are two questions, one from Stephanie around if this is something that someone with dementia might be able to do.
Yes, we have a dementia project in New York City, which is where I'm based, although I travel a lot around the world. And I'm in Massachusetts, and right now I'm in California teaching with Moving On Center and another college that I teach at. So those Moving On Center is another base for dynamic embodiment. And basically in the New York program, we're working with the Memory Center and we're working with people with dementia and collaborating with their work and really having them play with effort life. Effort life means, can I be light? Can I be strong? You saw me playing with that. Can I be direct? Can I be multi-focused? And so that's the Laban language for what I just said was also describing through developmental movement. There are a couple more, like, am I tight and am I free? Am I sudden or am I sustaining my time? So playing with the constraints of being on this planet in terms of space, in terms of gravity, in terms of time, and in terms of the flow of life. So with dementia, first of all, I would say if you can get rid of the metal toxicity in your body, try to do that. You know, get the metals out that might be clogging the blood-brain barrier. And of course, if you have the gene for it, respect that. Find out if there are any supplements that you really can take. But also play with challenging movement, just like you might play with memory games, because movement is a memory and it goes into this basal ganglia, which relates to the Parkinson's question that I noticed as well. If someone has Parkinson's disease, and you have a specialist in England on that, Melanie Brierley worked with me and many others who work with people with Parkinson's to understand how a somatic conscious movement approach to Parkinson's can aid many people still taking medication, but also maintaining vocal strength and movement strength through embodied movement. Not just exercise while watching TV. Now that's good for your heart, maybe, although Simon Borg, who's probably on this Embodiment Festival as well, and certainly has been in the past, he and I had this great talk about just if movement doesn't, it doesn't have to be aerobic to be good, because that actually could get you charged up and kind of angry. But if you want to calm your system and open up that flow that we just talked about, you can do that best if you're paying attention a little bit to your body cues and not hurting yourself also. I would like to share this book for a second because of this idea of flow, but also because it's to do with the chakras and the embodiment of the chakras. In other words, by taking time to feel where the neuroendocrine junctures are, where our nervous system and our glands, our hormonal secreting glands, our endocrine system meet, we postulate in dynamic embodiment, sourced from body mind centering, that these centers are really important for coming into ourselves and into the chakral energy. So thank you for that.
Thank you for mentioning that. Shall I put the link in you gave me, Martha? Yeah,
and there's also a kind of a code, DESS 22, that allows for some kind of a discount, 20%, I believe.
I love how it all interconnects, because we had Anodea Judith here for a moment. Oh, you're muted right now.
Yeah, could you tell me that again, please? Sorry.
I said we had Anodea Judith on the festival as well, and she was talking a lot about the chakras. So I love how it comes together and really brings that idea of this is a field, and while there are multiple disciplines and multiple approaches, they somehow come together and can complement each other in this beautiful way.
So great. So basically, like, there's a chapter in this book on developmental movement and how we learn from our baby movement, how to stimulate the glands as well, and the nervous system. So I've already talked about the brain, but also the glandular energy coming from the thymus, the thyroid. And so yoga can be very much lighter and freer while doing this kind of work. Yeah.
Any
Okay.
more questions? We have 1 more minute. Otherwise, we'll find the end to the session.
I
think
could
there
take
was a
another
lot.
second with this. Again, now that you've seen the movement, to say that moving for life, there are people, it's geared towards people originally with cancer. Breast cancer is where we started, but it's also for anybody who's still seated or just wants gentle movement. It is aerobic. It's really good for circulation and for the brain. We use some of these movements that I just showed to follow along. So we're looking to do a purely seated class, but right now, if somebody wants to be seated and the teacher's standing, the teacher will also show the modification. And then the body mind dancing is a place to explore these movements just with music and have fun. The dynamic embodiment is a place where you could get a session. There are about 120 dynamic embodiment practitioners around the world, all over almost every continent, as well as people that trained in these systems, as did I. I was not only a practitioner of each of these and a teacher of each of these, but I taught in the certification programs for them. So I highly recommend the sources and the amalgam that I've put together here. And if you want to just read more about that, then the book Mindful Movement should be helpful.
Thank you so much, Martha. It
I
was
would
a
be
real pleasure.
I would be beyond thrilled if some of you sign up for this Friday online. Join us. Some of us will be in person, but most of us will be online. It's often small and intimate, and you get personal attention. And again, you can adapt the movement. And of course, going to our website, you'll find other workshops, but also these drop-in eye classes, these drop-in movement classes, and some of more of these summits that are going on. And please do go to the rest of the summit because there's such great stuff here. So wonderful.
Thank you so much, Martha. Yes, you're very welcome to join for the rest. The last day, probably a lot of you are based in the US. So maybe for you, the first relevant session again of the last day is with Paul Linden, if you want to come to that. He's a very dear, I love his way and his work, and talking about Parkinson's as well, very inspiring human. And he's talking about power and love, and how to bring that together. So make sure to check out the schedule for tomorrow, whatever attracts you to join and come. And if you want to watch any of the sessions again, the recordings will be up. You're welcome to visit the website of Embodiment Unlimited. There are plenty of free offerings and courses and workshops available as well. And it would be lovely to see you. I know some of your faces have become very familiar, and it's really wonderful to keep seeing you here. So.
Paul Linden is great. He is an Aikidoist, and we all share that, and really takes the metaphor seriously. And he helped support me in developing something for my doctoral dissertation, which was violence prevention work. And so we have a website that's 20 years old, but it's worth visiting, called embodypeace.org. And then he's really talking about embodying peace with the conflict of having Parkinson's. How do you embrace and love what you've got? So that's a big message for all of us.
Yeah. I really recommend, if you can. It's 7 a.m. in the Pacific time zone. So not sure if you're awake so early, but otherwise catch his recording.
Well, that's not as bad as 3 a.m. in England right now. I mean, I'm really impressed with whoever's here from. Thank you, Benny and Fiona, and a bunch more of you. Vanessa, great. Wonderful. Yeah.
So if you want to say thank you yourself, you can unmute and just say goodbye. Thank you to Martha yourselves as well.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for coming.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Such
Hope to
very
see you
inspiring.
again.